It was a great experience to go to these different communities in Ontario and do this work. I had defined the project as being within Ontario because I felt it was important to talk about and think about what happens within a specific mental health care system, and this can be very different depending on the province you're in. But even within that mental health care system, it's very different depending on where you are. So in some places, in one place like Kenora, you learn a lot about what it's like to be in a smaller city. You also learn about the difference it makes when things are very hard to get to, when there's a lot less services, when even the terrain makes a difference in terms of your ability to get help or to get to regular supports. And then in a place like Toronto, part of what you're dealing with there is it seems like a place that has a lot of services, but it can be very hard to navigate. And then because of the diversity of the community, not all places work for all people. So that's some of the things that we heard about, you can hear about in a place like Toronto. In other places like Ottawa, there are actually sometimes language differences that make a difference. There, because of the strong Francophone presence, not everybody uses the same services. The ability to provide services in both languages isn't always available. People often have to work and seek help in places that maybe don't allow them to speak in the language that they prefer to. And of course, that's also true in some of the other places where there's a lot of ethnic and cultural diversity. So, and then in Western Ontario, again, another set of circumstances because it's a very different population. We're talking about people who are used to sort of traveling a lot to do things that they want to do. They were actually coming up with a lot of innovative solutions in terms of how they're navigating services. And this is part of actually what I saw in all of these settings, that people are coming up with creative ways to deal with the challenges that they're dealing with. But these are all different because of all the places you're going to.
Hi everyone. So we were talking about what makes it well in the family. So we talked about connections. Connections within the family, connections with other families going through the same, having the same issues as we are. So we call it peer support. So we get a lot of advice and support because there's an understanding there. So we're connecting with other families, connecting with the hospitals, but importantly, we're having a voice of ourselves. So when we're feeling respected, the recognition that families are part of the journey, that everyone has to deal with us as caregivers in the journey of our loved ones. So it's getting connected with the community, access to other services in the community. It's this connection. So our jewel is the connection. We're making connections on many different levels, and with many different people, but mostly it's hearing our voice as a family caregiver. And when we're feeling valued in the family by others, we all feel that we can give really good support to our loved ones.
We feel as though it's not wrong to talk about your feelings in a setting where families can be educated and open to accept people who are going through a mental illness, and able to, you know what, we're going to sit down and let's talk about it, and it's okay. People are people, right? So as the song goes, why should it be you and I shouldn't get along, you know? People with mental illness are people too, and we should respect them, and they should be treated just like anybody else, not just because they have mental illness, they're not less than. So I think that was the point.
Learn to be more empathic too, and go in their shoes, see things from their perspective, because what's true for us might not be true for them. Mm-hmm. So really be empathic. And we have one sentence that I like to say a lot is, do I want to be right or do I want to be effective in my relationship? So yes, we all want to be right all the time, but it's not effective, so I try to remember that and be more effective.
When your family member has that diagnosis and you look back into the past and the history of the other family members and find out that Uncle Joe had a mental illness or my aunt had a mental illness, and then you can see the cycle of where the mental illness came down the tree. So we found that was pretty important.
So having an education and understanding of what you're faced with is very important. So that awareness. And the other word that we chose is support. So support for both families and the loved ones who have mental illness.
It's important to have consistent support, but also outside support, friends, counselors, just to sort of help you know that things are progressing or moving well, or you're doing things in the right way. The importance of getting out and doing something other than caring for your loved one or thinking about your loved one or learning about mental illness, that kind of thing. Like just being able to go out and distract yourself from all your worries, and whether it's be volunteering, seeing a professional, just doing stuff that's not related to mental health, just kind of give you that break. So those breaks help you be better as a caregiver.
Each region has to be, the response has to be different. We need to have conversations, not just with the participants themselves, but the agencies that are also helping us with recruitment. Just overall community care. How does community care look like? How does healing from in one town looks like for one person is not going to be the same for another person. How someone sees their experience is not the same how other people sees their experience. So I felt like every time I connected with one voice with a family, I felt like I have to be like, okay, this is a new experience. I have to go in with a fresh pair of eyes, be empathetic, use my social work skills, be strengths-based, not come from a deficit approach, and really value that person's lived experience and prioritize that.
Well, I think actually London is doing a remarkable job in changing things, and I'm really impressed because, I have a 20-year history of mental health issues. It was 1994, well, more than 20 years, of course. That I became ill, and the difference between how I'm being treated now as compared to back then is like night and day. So there is hope. Things are changing, but probably not fast enough.
Those of us, like for today, the cafe, those of us that found out about it were invited or were interviewed to come, were either people who suffered with that mental illness or people who are supporting it, and in my case, I'm both. And there was such passion and such innovation and so many ideas. We have collectively so much knowledge about the illness and what should be done and what could be done. And you feel really positive, like we can do something, we can make an impact.
I think what always sticks with me, and that's what I found quite impactful, was how families connected with each other. And how even after a few minutes, families started talking about feeling more hopeful, just being able to have a space where they can talk to each other, where they can see that there are other families who are living through similar experiences, where they can share some of the things that they have done to be able to better cope with difficult circumstances.
Open communication. Open communication is the psychiatrist involved. A good psychiatrist, open communication with people that are going through the same thing. We started a support group and it's still on. Education, I took this the 6-week course. Reading. At one time I read 17 books. It's like just opening yourself up and accepting the illness and not trying so hard to make them well. And I think the relationship improves. So communication, again, with your loved one. So opening ourselves to many people and destigmatizing it also. Being open. I'm not hiding that I have a daughter. I'm open, I discuss it. And the more I discuss it, the more I learn, and the more acceptance.
Always remembering that the person that you know and the person with all her talents and beautiful ways is in there, even when it's not visible. And I guess for the times when that's not so visible, just self-care.
One of the takeaways I like to share with people here, it's hope. I've been in this journey 38 years. I've had 5 family members with mental illnesses. So there's hope. A lot of times all we see is the darkness, but there's hope. And most of the information that I've learned over the years is by talking to other family members. Reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. We have to get out of overcome our own insecurities. I know we all have our negative experiences with the healthcare system, but if there's 1 or 2 individuals in the healthcare system that go out of their way to help you, and you really get energized when that happens. So always keep up hope.
Thank you.